Good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune. Turn my volume up here for the 5th day of September 2018. Well, 9 and 5 is 14, and that reduces to 5, so today is a day of change. Could be a day of fulfillment, things coming to fruition. So thereby that would be an outcome that's reflected as the change, wouldn't it? Well, looks like I hear the ducks. They're joining us again. Hello. Oh, yeah, well, they can go forage for themselves. Well, we'll shuffle a little bit and get started here. For those of you who haven't been here before, welcome. I usually draw one card and one rune, although typically if I get a court card, I'll draw another card, but sometimes I do it anyway, because maybe I think there's a little more information we can get, or, you know. But I like to see how tarot and rune influences blend together, as well as the numerology of the day and of the cards. I have 3 ducks around me here, none of which is Peep and his mother, so we have ponds, so we have ducks. Some of them are wild, some of them aren't though. Some of them moved in from probably somebody else's property. And the mother, is huge. I mean, she's clearly not a wild mallard. She's tan, and she's just got some really subtly, well, they're beautiful markings really on her. So I don't know where she came from, but she has 7 babies that aren't really babies anymore, and they're pretty aggressive. And so they go after the one mother and her baby. She had just one. And she's let us get to know her baby, which is interesting. That's never happened before with this current grouping of ducks. Yeah, in fact, there's the tan mother there. But it's been fun, watching the little guy grow up. He's looks like he's going to start to fly here. He's flying a little bit, but not, like he should or like he will. Let's count 13. I'll go back to what I was saying before I start talking about ducks. What I do is I count 13. 13 is I was born on the 13th, and so 13 for whatever reason has figured prominently in my life. And I just read a thing yesterday that apparently Dorothy's glass her red slippers were taken away, were stolen. And that was 13 years ago, and the FBI came out and yesterday, I don't know if it was in Chicago or where it was, but they got him. They got him back, and it was 13 years. So I thought, that's interesting. Another 13. So I count 13, and I take that card. So we'll do that. Oh, another card of swords. We've been getting swords lately, but this is the 2 of swords. And you see a woman blindfolded, her arms crossed in front of her, holding 2 swords extending from her hands. There's a moon up there, a crescent moon, generally considered the maiden phase. You got some choppy water behind her. She sits on a simplistic stone seat. Her eyes are blindfolded, and she's turned away from, in a sense, the chaos of her thoughts, and she's going within to see, to achieve balance and to either make a decision, or maybe she's just in meditation. But typically when you see swords, you think thought process and communication and things like that. So, or decisions. When it's a 2, you're looking at a decision that she needs to make. So let's see what it has to do with. Swords is about reason and our mental process, and sometimes, when there's a lot of chaos around us, typically is caused by our own thought process. And so when that happens, you have to just you have to just sit back and take time, don't you? And give yourself a chance to think and weigh out the options. And the Two of Swords is basically what she's doing is she's weighing out some options, weighing out some ideas, bringing her mind to rest so that she can think clearly. It seems counterproductive, that you would put a blindfold on to think clearly, but sometimes you've just got to, shut the door to the world, shut the door to your problems, and just take a moment and think and come to center. But let's see if the cards can tell us what it is she's thinking about. Well, she's thinking about a Knight of Cups. Of course, I'd pull a court card, my favorite. But here we have, he's looking toward the future. This is emotions. So obviously something that she's thinking about involves something that's emotionally maybe upsetting to her, and she's trying to come to some kind of decision about it. But we have a light-colored steed that's prancing, getting ready to cross the river, it looks like. And, knights are chivalrous. But the thing about the knights, too, even though they're out there taking care of business, they're a more youthful energy as opposed to the king and the queen. Your pages and your knights are more youthful, with probably the knight being older than the page. But you're talking about, a romantic man, you're talking about a young man, you're talking about him um, almost like on the quest for the Holy Grail. He holds the cup. That could be thought of as the Grail or the womb, um, or the message, maybe, depending on how you see the Grail. Some believe the Grail was Mary Magdalene, maybe, or even Mary. But it's about the integration of, when you talk about a male individual with a watery card, you're talking about the integration of mind, body, spirit, and the integration of polarities, of masculine and feminine polarities. He seems to be a little more in touch with his own feminine aspect of self. He's passionate, he's a visionary, but he's also given to secret violence. These are people that, in terms of battle, in terms of military, which is a knight, that's what he is, the ability to do that, to be stealthy and to do things behind the scenes, that can be a good thing. But when you're in terms of personal relationships of any kind, when you're doing things behind the scenes, that doesn't work out. Some would say there's a lot of that going on right now, that supposedly this savior is coming and he's here evidently and he's doing things behind the scenes to save us all. But the problem with that is sometimes that's an illusion, especially if it's somebody that is an air sign or even a water sign. And it can also be true for the fire signs, probably not so much for the earthy ones, but those you can probably trust a little more. But with cups, that's emotions, and they can be all over the place. And a knight, the passion versus the emotions being all over the place, well, that's not necessarily a good combination. So I have to wonder, is this decision that this woman is making, is it about something that's just not real, that she's having to make a decision about stuff that is just crazy, and she shouldn't have to be doing any of that. Anytime the Knight of Cups comes into play, it's like, okay, what kind of nonsense is he going to cause? But let's take a look. Where's my rune bag? Let's take a look at the runes and see if that can inform us a little bit. Because the Knight of Cups, he can integrate well when things are going well for him. But if he's got any, personality issues at all, then he could be manipulative and leave everybody just wondering, what on earth is he doing? Why is he doing all of that? You know, he could go forward and do great things, but no, he's got to be in the drama and the chaos. And that's kind of what I see when I see, the Knight of Cups paired with the Two of Swords. Well, what drama is she having to contend with here and to make sense out of? Because that's really what you're doing here, is you're trying to make sense out of something with the Two of Swords. And here we have Ingwas or Ingus, however you want to pronounce it. Sometimes this is, let me see if I can get this a little bit better here. There, no? Well, it can be drawn as a diamond, or it can be drawn as two X's on top of one another. It represents energy releasing suddenly. So what it represents is our genetic inheritance. When it's done with the two X's, it looks like a little DNA strand. So, that's what you're seeing with this. It's the 22nd rune of the Elder Futhark. So as a master number, 22 is the cosmic builder. So it's good as a garden bind. It's part of a garden bind rune. I use it in one that I have out in my gardens. Um, it encourages growth and fertility and the promise of something new. Um, but it also thinks about what it is that you should be, it's also about the things you should be contemplating or thinking about. That's according to Thorson. And, uh, and I think that's an interesting perspective to take on this, the genesis of thought. Because if we are the creator focused into form, then all of this is a projection of the creator's thought process, isn't it? And so Ingus or Ingwas represents the creator's thought process, invoking into form. It follows Laguz as an earth element rune, clearly, because we're invoking ourselves into earth, basically. Um, it's about conception. Uh, it's about focus and centering, and that's what and basically it reinforces what this woman is doing here in the Two of Swords. She's focusing. She's trying to gather her energies together, gathering her thought processes together, and trying to come up with something that makes a little more sense to her about what's going on. And I think that that's really what we've all kind of been dealing with lately, trying to figure out what on earth is going on. There's a new book out that's been, well, it's previewing right now, but it's coming out on the 11th from Bob Woodward, who's, known for writing all kinds of books about politics and whatnot and presidents and stuff. And already it's being, panned by the White House as being nonsense. But the problem is that you're talking about, it's not like it's some tabloid lady. It's not like it's, well, even Wolf's book, he's an author, he's a respected author. But Bob Woodward is somebody else, isn't he? And I think that when that breaks on the 11th, and it comes out, I'll be reading it to see what it has to say. But I would suspect that it'll reinforce a lot of what Craig Unger is talking about in his book. This is the year 2018, and is an 11 year, and we're finding out things this year. Now, we're either going to find out that people who believe that he's the savior are right, and that they saw something that the rest of us and that Department of Justice and researchers and journalists don't see. Now, they could say that's because we're ignorant, or they just don't want to, or they're part of this or that conspiracy or whatever. But I think that we have to put away the drama of this and start looking at things from a realistic perspective. The old saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. Well, the arsonist is going to be the one saying, "Hey, don't look at me." And unfortunately, that's how this is playing out. Now, you have the perspective out there that says, well, uh, that's all an illusion and it's by design. I believe I saw one time it was referenced as kabuki theater. Well, I wrote a thing on the blog, and it's called When Truth Eludes Us. I think that's what I called it. Sometimes I play around with the title while I'm writing. I think that's what it's something like that. I know Truth Eludes Us in there, but I might have put when in front of it. I took it out once, but I think I put it back in. Anyway, when truth eludes us and the drama gets too much, we have to do this, don't we? And what I said ultimately in that is when you tell me not to believe what I'm seeing and to believe only you, first thing I'm going to do is not believe you at all. When you don't give me any evidence other than just believe me, I'm not going to believe you at all. Not until I see evidence. Now, maybe you're just saying that because you're an idiot and you don't understand that, it isn't simply because by virtue of you speaking that all truth is revealed. No, no, you have to give evidence. When there's all this evidence that's suggesting something else, something that is so horrible. Just, I mean, can you imagine a foreign government working with a candidate? Can you imagine that? To then win? We can't have that. And if that's what happened, and it's sure looking like that's what happened, the last thing anybody needs to do is not go within and think about what is really going on here. Does it make sense? And so I talked about that in that blog post that I put up. And just as food for thought, you know, we don't know what the final result of any of this is going to be. But at the same time, we can't allow the drama that's going on to interfere with our own decisions about it. It's easy to say, well, ignore the drama. Well, it's not easy to ignore the drama, isn't it? It's everywhere. Every day I look on my newsreader, I watch TV, I watch the news, whatever I'm seeing, whoever's being indicted, whoever's being, arrested, whoever's being convicted, whoever's pleading guilty, it's telling a story that's opposite than what the other guy wants us to believe. And now, apparently, we're not supposed to prosecute people that are Republicans because it might interfere with the elections. Golly gee, we might reelect someone that shouldn't be there, Weren't we supposed to drain the swamp? Don't we want the swamp rats out of there? Why do we want to not prosecute them? People who take money from veterans, people who don't who use campaign dollars to pay their mortgages. Folks, that doesn't happen. Well, except that it does. But we're all supposed to ignore the man behind the curtain, which brings us to the Wizard of Oz and Dorothy's shoes, doesn't it? And number 13. 13 years it took, and they finally got him. They finally got them back. Now, it may not mean anything to most people, but it's interesting, isn't it? I don't know. I think that at some point we've got to pull our heads out of the clouds and out of the narrative that we want to be true and set those things aside, if only temporarily. And we got to see what's going on. We've got to right the ship. We've got to get us going in a better direction. Change can happen without complete destruction. We just have to know what's going on. So when you hear that, and one thing I mentioned in the post I did, is when you hear this supposed group behind the scenes that's taking care of all this for us on our behalf, gonna get the truth out. It's not coming out. Oh, but then there's some that can't. It's just too much for the country to handle. Here's the thing. When I do this, that tells me that the people behind the scenes that are supposedly our saviors, they're just another group that want control. So, if all that's so, why is there anything we can't know about? How do we all move forward if we don't know the truth of everything that's been going on in our government, in the world? how do we do that? You know, from my own perspective, I believe that pedophilia is true. I don't know how threaded in throughout everything it is, but I believe it is. And I think we need to know if it involves politicians, if it involves government officials. We already know it involves the Catholic Church. Now we hear rumors of other things that are coming out. We see it in Hollywood. So I get the need to believe something else, because if we don't get to the bottom of it, if we don't stop accepting the status quo, we aren't going to get to the truth. But in our process of getting to the truth, let's not give ourselves over to people that may be just as problematic as the current ones that we're concerned about. If people aren't willing to be completely transparent, if you ever hear someone tell you, oh, well, no, we can't tell you about that stuff because that's just too much, you're part of it in some way, either in terms of wanting the same level of power and control. You know, people that get full of themselves, you know, that's how it starts. And pretty soon they've convinced themselves of all sorts of things that are okay to do in the name of others. We've seen it time and time again. So while it's nice that there might be people trying to unearth this stuff, that's great. We need that. This really all needs to be about all of us knowing everything. Everything. Even the really, 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 really bad stuff. Because I'm telling you, I'm a survivor, so I know what this is. And for the dignity of all survivors everywhere, from whatever abuse that they've been dealt over their lifetime, we all need to know. So we need to take the blindfolds off now. And we need to know what's been going on in our name and what is still going on in our name. And we need to take back all of it into the hands of the people, and to have the people's voice really matter. Because right now, I'm telling you, it doesn't. Whatever we're seeing, whatever we're told we're supposed to believe, and we're not supposed to believe anything else that's supposedly evidence, there are court proceedings happening, folks. People are going to go to jail from them. Felony convictions are happening. People are pleading guilty. They wouldn't do that if it weren't so. These people that we're seeing have been in this business forever. Now, I, for one, think that it's time to take the blindfold off and to make a decision about this. Open the floodgates. Let us know what's going on. Forget the kabuki theater. Forget the dodging and weaving. If the guy in the Oval Office is truly the savior, then why don't you start being it today? Tell us everything. Tell us what's really going on. Tell us that we didn't elect someone who, well, I didn't, but tell us that the people who voted for you voted for someone who's not someone connected with the Russian mob, that didn't take money from Russian oligarchs to fund his, what is this, Bayrock company? This is all Russian stuff. This is all foreign stuff. They funded you. They funded your building projects. I'm sorry, I just don't believe it. I don't believe he's the guy. I think that we've got to stop looking for saviors. And we got to start taking care of this ourselves. And unfortunately, the only way that we can do that is through discernment and through not listening to the guy who sweeps you up in a rally who can't seem to stop doing them. Ask yourself why. That he has to go and keep everybody's mindset focused on this little narrative of his that doesn't seem to be playing out. Discernment. That's what's needed. And you're going to have to turn off the TV, turn off all of it, go within and know the truth here. Something is very wrong. Now, I could be wrong about all of it, but whenever this happens to me, where it's just this push, I just feel this push, this no, 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 higher self's going, no, 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 this is not right. Do not believe this. You know what the truth is. So in this year of illumination, spend some time going within. Ignore the noise. But pay attention to the fact that you're being lied to every day by someone who all you got to do is go back to the day before or the Twitter timeline. It's all there. It's almost like he wants to get caught. Maybe he does. Maybe all this is happening so that we can see all of this happening and we can't close our eyes to it anymore. Maybe we've all closed our eyes to it for too long. But at some point, we're going to have to make a decision, aren't we, about what that is. But the one thing we need to do is see clearly. Even if it's something that we don't want to see. Because here's the thing. If he's right, if he's the guy, if he's the savior, if he's the one that's going to right the ship, well, maybe it's because the ship has been based on all this crap all the time. For all these years. All this behind the scenes, people, the rich among us, controlling everything. Well, he's the rich among us, isn't he? Boy, are you going to expect him to not be that? He keeps telling you that he is. You know, when he recites the song lyrics about being the snake, I told you I was the snake, or whatever the heck that is. He's laughing at all of us, and he's taunting everyone. He's the snake. He told you. He told you who he was when you voted for him. So what? Don't cry now? Well, we got to wake up, folks. We really do. So anyway, that's enough for today. I've got some things I got to do today. I've got to go do some watering. My husband's doing the fertilizing again one last time. Yay. So hopefully we'll get some more beans. I think I'm going to not freeze these. I'm gonna try my hand at the pressure cooker canning. I've not done that before. I saw this thing years ago on General Hospital. It's a soap opera. I don't think it's on anymore. But anyway, Luke and Laura. It was the saga of Luke and Laura, and they're on the run, and so they go to this. They end up at this farmhouse, right? This lady, and I think she's canning pumpkin, and you know it's the whole frightening thing of the pressure cooker getting too much pressure and the whole thing blows up and it gets all over the kitchen. Well, of course there was pumpkin all over everything because it blew up. So that's why I've never, I don't know, after that I just got spooked. So I do water bath canning, but I've never done pressure cooker canning, but I'm going to do that this year. And because we've actually run out of room in the freezers. So I don't have a choice. So I got to learn something new. I'm going to do that this week. Anyhow, you guys have a great day and ignore the drama. Think for yourself. Blessed be.